It was an ordinary Tuesday when everything changed. The kind of Tuesday where nothing exciting happens. Work, bills, leftovers in the fridge. My life wasn't bad, but it wasn't great either. Just average. So when I checked my mailbox that afternoon, I wasn't expecting much. Maybe a bill or some junk mail promising me a free cruise if I called within the next 10 minutes. Instead, there was a letter. Not an envelope from the bank or one of those cheesy postcards with a palm tree on it. This was different. The paper was thick, like parchment, and the envelope had my name written on it in elegant cursive. No stamp, no return address. "All right, what scam is this?" I muttered, flipping it over. I tore it open and pulled out a single sheet of paper. The handwriting was neat, almost too perfect, like it came from another time. The message was short, but left me feeling like I'd swallowed a live wire. "If you're reading this, you have a chance to fix everything. Wait for the call at midnight." I stared at it, waiting for some sort of punchline. Nothing. I checked the envelope again. No hidden compartments, no explanation, just that one cryptic line. "Fix what?" I said aloud, as if the letter could answer me. I carried it inside, tossed it on the counter, and tried to shake it off. It was probably a prank. Someone had too much time on their hands and decided to mess with me. That had to be it. But even as I heated up my sad microwave dinner, the words kept buzzing in my head like a mosquito I couldn't swat away. By 11:45 p.m., I was pacing the living room, staring at the clock, phone in hand. This is stupid, I told myself. It's probably just a telemarketer or some robocall trying to sell me solar panels. But I didn't put the phone down. Something about the letter, it felt personal, like it knew me. And that's what scared me. The clock struck midnight, and for a moment there was nothing. No call, no answer, just the sound of my own breathing. I almost laughed at myself for falling for such an obvious hoax. And then the phone rang. The screen didn't show a number. It just said, "Unknown caller." I hesitated, my thumb hovering over the answer button. My brain screamed at me to let it go to voicemail, but curiosity had me in a chokehold. "Hello?" I said, my voice shaking. There was silence on the other end, and I was about to hang up when I heard a man's voice. "John, listen carefully," he said. "You don't have much time." "Who is this?" I demanded. "Is this some kind of joke?" "It's you," the man said. "It's me. Well, future you." I blinked. "Yeah, sure it is. Is this Steve? Did you put someone up to this? Because if you did, it's not funny." "I'm serious, John," the voice insisted. "This isn't a prank. I don't have time to explain everything, but you have to listen to me. Go to the old factory on 7th Street. You need to fix what happened there." Wait, what? The factory? That place has been shut down for years. Why would I go there? Because that's where everything started, and it's the only place you can make it right. I opened my mouth to argue, but something about the voice stopped me. It wasn't just that it sounded like me. It felt like me. Like the part of me that stayed up at night, reliving old mistakes and wondering what could have been. "This is crazy," I muttered. "Maybe," he said, "but you'll regret it if you don't go." Before I could respond, the line went dead. I stared at the phone, half expecting it to ring again. When it didn't, I set it down and ran my hands through my hair. "Okay, John," I said to myself. "Let's think about this. You've either lost your mind or someone's really dedicated to screwing with you." But even as I tried to convince myself it was a bad joke, my gut told me otherwise. Something about that voice felt too real. And as much as I didn't want to admit it, I was curious. By the time I grabbed my keys and headed for the car, it was almost 12:30 a.m. The streets were quiet, the kind of quiet that makes you feel like the world has forgotten you exist. As I drove toward the factory, I kept replaying the call in my head. What was I supposed to fix? What could I possibly change that would make a difference now? I didn't have any answers, but one thing was clear. This wasn't just some random prank. It was personal, and I wasn't going to ignore it. The old factory on 7th Street looked exactly how I remembered it, like a skeleton of its former self. Rusted beams jutted out at odd angles, broken windows gaped like empty eye sockets, and the air smelled of mildew and forgotten dreams. As a kid, this place had been our playground, a crumbling monument to our small-town boredom. But now it felt like walking into the belly of a beast. I parked my car a block away, just in case this really was a prank, and someone decided to jump out with a camera shouting, "Gotcha!" I didn't need that immortalized on TikTok. The main door groaned as I pushed it open, the sound cutting through the eerie silence like a scream. My flashlight flickered over walls covered in graffiti, some of it new, some of it the same tags we'd left as kids. The memories hit me hard. Danny and I used to spend hours here, daring each other to climb higher, jump farther. And then one day the dares went too far. I stopped in my tracks. "Danny," I whispered, his name feeling foreign on my lips after all these years. I hadn't said it out loud in a long time, not since the accident. "John." I spun around, heart racing, the flashlight shaking in my hand. There he was. No, not Danny. Me. Older me. The man from the phone call stood a few feet away, half hidden in the shadows. He looked exhausted, like someone who'd been running from something for far too long. "This is insane," I said, backing up a step. You're not real. This isn't real." "It's real," he said, his voice calm but firm, "and we don't have much time." "Okay, let's just pause for a second," I said, holding up my hands. "You're me? From the future? How does that even work? Is this some sci-fi crap? Did I hit my head?" "Believe me, I'd love to give you the full rundown," he replied, stepping closer. "But if we don't fix this tonight, none of it will matter." "Fix what?" I snapped, my frustration boiling over. "What is so important that you, or me, or whoever, dragged me out here in the middle of the night?" He reached into his pocket and pulled out something small, holding it up to the light. It was an old key, shaped like a locket, with intricate designs etched into the metal. "This," he said, handing it to me. I took it, the cold metal pressing against my palm. "What am I supposed to do with this? Open a magic door?" "Go upstairs," he said. "To the platform. That's where it happened. That's where you'll find him." "Find who?" He hesitated, his eyes heavy with regret. "Danny." My stomach dropped. "No," I said, shaking my head. No. Danny's gone. He's been gone for years. What are you talking about?" "Not tonight," he said. "Tonight you can save him, but only if you go now." I stared at him, my head spinning. None of this made sense, but the weight of the key in my hand felt undeniable. It was like it was pulling me forward. "Why can't you do it?" I asked, my voice trembling. "Because I already tried," he said quietly, "and I failed. That's why I'm here. You have to do it, John. You're the only one who can." Before I could argue, he started to fade. It wasn't like disappearing into thin air. It was slower, like he was dissolving into the shadows. "Wait," I shouted, reaching for him, but it was too late. He was gone. The stairs creaked under my weight as I climbed to the second floor. Every step felt heavier than the last, the air growing colder, sharper. I gripped the railing, my flashlight casting long, shaky beams of light into the darkness. And then I heard it. Voices. "Come on, John!" Danny's voice echoed, clear as day. "Don't chicken out now." I froze, my heart pounding. The scene unfolded in front of me like a memory brought to life. There we were, me and Danny at 15, standing on the platform. He was laughing, teasing me, his energy filling the space like it always did. "Shut up, Danny." My younger self shot back. "I'm not chicken. I just don't think it's a good idea." "It's a great idea," Danny said, grinning. "Come on, it's not that far. I'll go first." "No," I whispered, stepping closer. "Don't." But they couldn't hear me. I was just an observer, a ghost in my own past. Danny stepped toward the edge of the platform, his sneakers scraping against the worn metal. My younger self hesitated, watching him with a mix of awe and fear. "This is how it happened," I said to myself, my throat tight. "This is the moment." I reached into my pocket and felt the key, its weight grounding me. Without thinking, I pulled it out and hurled it toward the platform. It hit with a loud clang, the sound reverberating through the factory like a gunshot. Both Danny and my younger self stopped, their heads snapping toward the noise. "What was that?" Danny asked, stepping back from the edge. "I don't know," younger me said, his voice shaky, "but maybe we should get out of here." Danny nodded, glancing at the key on the ground. "Yeah, let's go." I watched as they walked away, their laughter fading into the distance. My legs gave out, and I collapsed onto the cold metal floor, tears streaming down my face. I had done it. I had changed the moment that haunted me for years. But what would it cost? The factory was silent again, the shadows stretching long and empty. I sat there for what felt like hours, clutching the key like a lifeline. I didn't know what came next. All I knew was that for the first time in years, the crushing weight of guilt felt lighter. And for the first time in years, I allowed myself to hope. I woke up to sunlight streaming through the shattered windows of the factory. For a moment I couldn't remember where I was. The cold, hard floor beneath me brought it all rushing back. The letter, the call, the key, Danny. I sat up, groaning as my stiff muscles protested. The factory wasn't the same as it had been last night. The decay was gone. Instead, the space buzzed with life. The air smelled of fresh paint and machinery oil, and the distant hum of voices carried through the building. I stumbled to my feet, blinking in disbelief. "What the hell?" I muttered, spinning around. The graffiti, the rust, the broken beams, it was all gone. This wasn't the factory I'd grown up with. I made my way downstairs, feeling like I had stepped into a parallel universe. Workers moved through the building, carrying tools and chatting. A forklift beeped as it reversed, and someone yelled instructions over the noise. No one seemed to notice me standing there like I didn't belong. And then I saw him. Danny. He stood near the entrance, clipboard in hand, wearing a neatly pressed suit. His hair was shorter, his face older, but it was him, alive, whole. I froze, my heart pounding in my chest. Danny, the kid I had lost, the friend I had spent years mourning. He was here. Without thinking, I moved closer. "Danny," I called out, my voice cracking. He turned, his brow furrowed as he scanned the crowd. His eyes landed on me, and for a moment I thought he recognized me. But then his face shifted into polite confusion. Can I help you?" he asked, his tone cautious. My throat tightened. Of course he didn't recognize me. In this version of reality, I wasn't part of his life anymore. I stopped, searching for the right words. What could I possibly say? "I thought you were someone else. Sorry." "No problem," he said, flashing a quick smile before turning back to his clipboard. I watched him walk away, my chest aching with a strange mix of relief and loss. I had saved him, but at what cost? I left the factory and wandered the streets, my mind racing. Everything felt off. The world around me was familiar, but details kept jumping out, subtle differences I couldn't ignore. A cafe that used to be a hardware store, a park where a parking lot used to be. As I walked, I found myself drawn to the diner where Danny and I used to hang out after school. It was still there, the neon sign flickering in the morning light. I pushed open the door, the bell jingling above me. "Take a seat anywhere," the waitress called, barely glancing up from her notepad. I slid into a booth by the window, the vinyl seat sticking to the back of my shirt. The place smelled like coffee and syrup, just like it always had. I stared out the window, replaying the events of the night before. The key, the platform, the moment Danny stepped back from the edge. It felt like a dream, too surreal to be real. "You look like you've seen a ghost." I turned to see the waitress standing by my table, coffee pot in hand. She was in her 50s, with a kind face and a sharp gaze. "Something like that," I said, managing a weak smile. She poured me a cup of coffee and leaned on the counter. "Rough night?" "You could say that." She gave me a knowing look. "Sometimes life gives you a second chance. The trick is figuring out what to do with it." I blinked, startled. "What makes you say that?" She shrugged. "You've got that look, like you're carrying something heavy." "Yeah," I admitted, staring into my coffee. "I guess I am." "Well, whatever it is, don't let it weigh you down," she said, patting my shoulder. "You're here, aren't you? That's got to mean something." Her words stayed with me long after I left the diner. That evening, I found myself back at the factory. The workers had gone home, and the building was quiet again. I stood outside, staring up at the windows. The memories of that night, the night, played in my mind like a film on repeat. I didn't hear the footsteps until they were right behind me. "John." I turned, my breath catching in my throat. It was him, future me. "You again," my voice laced with disbelief. "I thought you were gone." "I am," he said, his expression calm. "But you're not done yet." "What are you talking about? I saved him. Danny's alive. Isn't that enough?" "It's not just about saving him," he said. "It's about saving you." I frowned. "What do you mean?" "You've been carrying that guilt for years," he said, stepping closer. "It's shaped every decision you've made, every path you've taken. You let it define you, but now you have a chance to let it go." I looked away, his words cutting deeper than I wanted to admit. "And how do I do that?" I asked quietly. "By forgiving yourself," he said. "You can't change what happened the first time, but you can choose what happens next. You've already proven that." I stared at him, the weight of his words sinking in. "Will I see you again?" I asked. He smiled faintly. "I hope not." and just like before, he was gone. I stood there for a long time, staring at the empty space where he had been. The factory loomed behind me, but it didn't feel like a place of loss anymore. It felt lighter. For the first time in years, I took a deep breath and let it out. Danny was alive. The past was behind me, and the future was mine to write.